Welcome to this Alaska Land Mobile Radio training video on the Motorola APX Smart Connect system. In this video, we will go over the Motorola APX Smart Connect system. This system has recently been approved for use from the Department of Defense and the FedRAMP approval process for use on the ALMR system. This indicates that the security concerns and all necessary precautions have been taken to ensure a high level of security remains on the system, even though we are introducing a new way of using it. There's significant planning and programming considerations that must go into planning for the deployment of a Smart Connect for your particular agency. We're going to go over a few facts about Smart Connect and the programming changes required. The APX Smart Connect system from Motorola is a way to interface with the ALMR system when you don't necessarily have good RF or radio frequency coverage to ALMR. Depending on how it's configured, Smart Connect and a Smart Connect enabled radio can switch between using your normal ALMR coverage to something like a Wi-Fi connection or a broadband cellular connection to reach the ALMR system. What this allows is flexibility in the use of your radio for areas that may not have coverage for ALMR or areas that may have blocked coverage for ALMR for some reason. For instance, certain construction of buildings tend to affect radio frequency signals, and users may notice that their ALMR signal degrades or drops off completely within these facilities. The radio is automatically programmed to switch between modes as necessary. So for instance, if you lose your ALMR connection because you've gone into a stout building, such as a school, the system will automatically switch to either an LTE cellular connection or a Wi-Fi connection, depending on how the feature is enabled. This happens generally seamlessly to the user, and this system allows for your radio traffic when going through LTE or Wi-Fi to go through a special secured gateway to reach the ALMR system and then be transmitted out just as if you were transmitting on the normal system. Obviously, there are incredible advantages to this to extend the footprint, the physical footprint of the ALMR system, and also potential to shore up coverage gaps that may exist in your agency's area. There are several requirements and considerations for Smart Connect, so let's go through those now. Smart Connect requires several different features, both hardware and software. To start with, Smart Connect is compatible with the APX series of radios, and specifically in the Next series, as well as the 8000 and 8500. Please note that these requirements and compatibility may change from time to time as model numbers are discontinued and superseded. Always check with your radio dealer to ensure that your particular radios will be compatible and what the requirements are. For Motorola radios, features are enabled via software. When you purchase new radios, you generally purchase the software options that you wish to connect to. Smart Connect is a particular software feature that must be enabled on the radio, either at purchase or in some cases may be able to be added later via a flash. In addition, you may need to add additional features for Wi-Fi connectivity or cellular connectivity depending on what you are looking for your deployment. Note that Smart Connect features and other radio features will generally include a cost, as well as a cost to access the Smart Connect gateway itself. You should contact your dealer for licensing and cost information. Finally, if you are interested in using the LTE requirements or LTE coverage, you must have cellular accounts provisioned through your agency for each radio. The cellular connectivity is in addition to any costs you may be paying for the radio feature itself. So you want to check with your provider for the different cellular options that you may have for those radios. Keep in mind that due to the technology involved, only AT&T and Verizon are currently supported for LTE connectivity. Other providers are not enabled at this time. Again, contact the ALMR Help Desk or your dealer for more information and note that these requirements may be subject to change. If your agency is interested in deploying Smart Connect, there are several steps that you must take to ensure a successful deployment. Again, contact your dealer if you need new hardware or you need any features to get an idea of what requirements are there and if your current hardware will support Smart Connect or if replacements are required. Obviously, the hardware required will significantly impact the cost of a deployment project. Before purchasing or committing to anything related to Smart Connect, contact the ALMR Help Desk for guidance. The Help Desk will assist with the process of getting the information from you for Smart Connect, but can also provide information based on their experience and requirements for provisioning the system. If you have current radios that will be converted to Smart Connect, or if you're adding more, it is essential that the physical hardware inventory that you have is accurate. Remember that when your agency point of contact signs the membership agreement with ALMR each year, they are also signing that the inventory on file with the help desk is accurate. Particularly radio models and serial numbers and radio identification that is issued by the ALMR desk must be programmed correctly into each radio, and the system must have the correct corresponding serial numbers and other information in order to authenticate the radio into Smart Connect. These requirements contribute to the security and authenticity of the radio attempting to gain access to the network and are part of our cybersecurity program. In other words, the physical inventory must be completely accurate in order for all of the provisioned radios to work properly and to ensure the security is in place. If you don't do a physical inventory of your radios or you haven't verified your inventory, it may be recommended that you perform a physical radio inventory of any of the new units that may be on Smart Connect or existing units that you may be converting over. Next, if you are using Wi-Fi, you must define and provision any authorized Wi-Fi networks. When we discuss programming changes in a moment, we'll discuss more about Wi-Fi. You must obtain the security certificate from ALMR that's part of the programming changes and update the programming on all of your radios, either physically or through a radio management software. Also keep in mind that if using the LTE function, the LTE accounts and SIM cards must be ready to be installed on the radios. Let's begin discussing the changes and the features required on each radio. First of all, you will receive a security certificate once your Smart Connect is set up. This certificate must be loaded on each radio and can be loaded in the APX customer programming software or by your radio dealer. This certificate provides a security assurance similar to a security certificate you may find on a website where you have a shopping option to ensure that the radio traffic is secure and that your radio unit is authorized to access the ALMR system. This certificate is in addition to the other security features that are already present to authenticate radios to the regular ALMR system. Next, it is important to set the land mobile radio preference in the programming software. In the trunking personalities, the Smart Connect operation function must be set to LMR preferred. This allows the radio to set the land mobile radio connection or the radio frequency connection as the primary mode of connection to the system. Only when that connection is not available or is degraded will it use the other broadband connections. This improves the performance of the radio and allows the system to work at peak capacity both from a capacity and system standpoint as well as a user experience standpoint. Once this option is set, your Wi-Fi or your LTE connection becomes the second and third line of connection instead of the primary. The next step in the programming changes is to define the authorized Wi-Fi networks that your radio may use. It's important to recognize that APX Smart Connect does not connect to every Wi-Fi network that's available. You must define the Wi-Fi networks that your radio can connect to, as well as defining their security, before the system can use Wi-Fi. In other words, The radio will not connect to anything like public Wi-Fi, such as a hotel or coffee shop, but you could define different Wi-Fi networks for different use cases depending upon your jurisdiction. For instance, if your city has a common Wi-Fi network that exists in all of its buildings, you could provision that Wi-Fi network here in the programming software, so when a user is in those buildings, it will automatically use that Wi-Fi. The same could apply to areas like schools or hospitals that have a secure Wi-Fi connection that you typically have areas where you lose radio frequency connectivity. Wi-Fi that is used should be a secure Wi-Fi with a minimum of password protection and encryption. You may also use hidden Wi-Fi networks, and this allows Wi-Fi networks to exist with your normal IT infrastructure, but they won't be displayed to users such as the public when looking for available Wi-Fi networks. The Wi-Fi networks and their priorities are defined here in the Data Configuration tab of the customer programming software. Finally, each radio will require the host name for Smart Connect. This allows your radio traffic to be routed specifically to the ALMR network. This information will be provided by the ALMR Help Desk. Each agency operating on the ALMR system is different, and you'll have different use cases for something like Smart Connect, as well as your radio inventory will vary depending on agency. Again, start by contacting your dealer and the ALMR Help Desk if you are considering Smart Connect for more detailed guidance on your specific situation. Please keep in mind that looking at a system like Smart Connect requires some pre-planning before rolling out hardware and programming changes. You may consider Smart Connect for a small subset of users, or it may not make sense for your agency at all depending on your geographic area and response profile. For instance, if you have good ALMR coverage and you are in a fairly open non-urban area where you don't have significant coverage issues in buildings, Smart Connect may not be practical for the cost. However, if you're in a dense urban area or you have some areas of communities that have been built up over time since the ALMR network was built, you may have some gaps where Smart Connect may be useful to you. Make sure you understand the additional programming changes and the radio management that Smart Connect requires. If you have questions, please don't hesitate to contact the ALMR Help Desk or the Operations Management Office to talk about your specific situation and receive some best practices from our staff. For additional training and information on other topics, you can visit our website or visit the ALMR channel on YouTube for training videos and other resources.